Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and in today's video I want to show you guys one of the most fun builds that I've ever ran in World of Warcraft by far, the triple Deadshot build. This is the build that I'll be using for my Mythic Plus dungeons in order to push keys, but I've also been using it in raids as well as PvP, and so far it has been super fun. This build is focusing around Deadshot build, which on Between the Eyes makes the next pistol shot do more damage. Triple stacking that reminds me very much of the Outlaw Rogues of Legion with Rogue Legendary Bracers, but it's a lot easier to function with. It does have a little bit of RNG. With a low end roll you're getting some decent damage, but on a high end roll you are going to do insane amounts of damage, enough to rip the aggro off of the tank and onto you. So if you guys want to do some big damage with Outlaw, this is the build for you. So how does the trait of Deadshot work? If you read the trait of Deadshot, on a Between the Eyes, it makes your next pistol shot do increased damage. Triple stacking that allows for the bursty playstyle. It's actually very simple to do. On top of it, most of the gear that you will need in order to make this build work can be gotten from dungeons, whether you run them on Heroic or Mythic. The helmet you can get from Freehold from the very last boss, but if you can't get that one, there's also a helmet at the end of Tol Dagor, also the end boss, and those you can farm either on Heroic, try to get them on Mythic 0, or try to farm Mythic Plus keys at about a 2 or 3 where it still is fairly easy to run, and try to see if you can get those pieces of headpieces for your Deadshot build. The chest piece you can get from a dungeon called King's Rest. That one you cannot run on Heroic, you have to run that one on Mythic 0 or Mythic Plus. It is not a difficult dungeon, and if you're a Horde or Alliance, eventually you'll unlock that one as you do the story campaign or the Warfronts as Alliance. Generally, it shouldn't be that difficult to get in a dungeon run for King's Rest. There's a couple things that come from King's Rest, like probably one of the better weapons for strength users as well as a mount. So there's a good chance that people will be trying to run that exact dungeon in order to see if they can get one of those goodies. You can usually hitch a ride along, it's fairly easy to run, fairly easy to play through, and if you get a little bit lucky, or if you're someone who can run Mythic Plus dungeons at 2 or 3 over and over and over for King's Rest, then it'll increase your chances of getting that chest piece. For the shoulder piece, I actually got a little bit lucky, and this is where it might be a differentiation for your build and mine. For me, I'm able to get a triple Deadshot build, and it wasn't easy to get that piece of shoulder. The shoulder was an RNG drop from a world quest for the Honor Bound, so be sure to do your world quest whenever available. Now, you can technically run this build with 2 Deadshots, but if you can get a third one, that is generally icing on the cake. Currently, I don't know of a single dungeon boss that drops the shoulders with the Deadshot build, so this one is going to be up to the RNG. But make sure to do your daily events, make sure to do Warfronts whenever they come around to your faction for that chance for a Deadshot piece of gear. The stats you will want to run for this type of build are at least 1000 haste, to make sure that you have decent energy regen. And because with this build you will be pressing Between the Eyes a lot, crit is going to be your next best stat. If you can get crit, versatility is a decent stat afterwards, and mastery is going to be your worst stat. Generally, getting a better weapon or more agility on gear is going to increase your damage, but if you can mix and match your gear with enough haste for at least 1000 points into it, and then try to optimize for as much crit afterwards as possible, that's going to be your best ticket in order to make this build work. The talents we will be using to make this build work are the regular Outlaw Rogue PvE, PvP single target talents, with Quick Draw, Alacrity, and Vigor being the talents you will probably want to run in order to increase the amount of damage output. Alacrity is because you will be running Roll the Bones playstyle. If you don't like Roll the Bones, I do have a Slice and Dice Snake build down in the description below, and I have a link for you guys if you want to run a Slice and Dice playstyle, but for this build you will want to run Roll the Bones, it just makes it a lot more potent. And you will want to run Quick Draw because you're trying to beef up the damage of a pistol shot proc as much as possible, so that one is necessary. And Vigor generally helps you manage your energy a lot easier in single target and PvE AoE situations. Before we go on to show you guys exactly how to run this build, I will say this: if you're someone who is new to Outlaw Rogues in Battle for Azeroth for PvE, I highly suggest for you guys to check out the basic PvE guide for Battle for Azeroth patch 8.0.1. I will have a link for that down in the description below. So in order to make sure that everything in this video makes sense, be sure to watch that video first. Otherwise, enjoy the actual build. The playstyle of this build is very simple, and this is where the joy comes in. You don't really have to change your playstyle that much. In the opener, you'll want to build combo points until you have a decent set of buffs. So generally you're playing just like how you would with normal Outlaw Rogue PvE, single target or AoE from normal PvE guides. Once you get yourself Grand Melee, Deadly Precision, or any 2 buff combo, hopefully one of those buffs will be Broadsides, which also increases the damage of your pistol shot procs. Once you have your buffs set up, you'll want to try to primer your next pistol shot to do more damage. To primer a pistol shot to do more damage, build combo points to 4 or 5 and then use Between the Eyes. This gives you the Deadshot buff, making your next pistol shot do even more damage. Then you want to continue with your normal single target rotation until you get a pistol shot half off proc from your Sinister Strike. Once you do, following the normal single target energy capping, combo point capping rotation, that pistol shot for half off is going to do so much damage it's not even funny. Right now it is sitting for an average of 19k low end for me, so imagine the damage when it crits. And imagine trying to have Blade Flurry running when that crit goes off. This is what makes the build work. On top of it, if you're able to get a bunch of buffs together, like your crit buff from Shark Infested Waters, maybe Broadsides in there if you get lucky, maybe you get a couple trinkets going off all at the same time, maybe certain buffs for your Azerite pieces, you know, agility and such, then you're able to get yourself increased damage all across the board. And the amount of damage you can put out to a single enemy or a cleave is absolutely hilarious. It is a little bit RNG, so sometimes you'll get the big crits for like what, 43, 50, and even sometimes 60k with your pistol shot procs. And if you have Blade Flurry running, you're able to cleave everybody. So if your hits for 60k, it is going to splash off for everybody else at 45%, unless you're running a talent that modifies your Blade Flurry to do 5% more damage, of course. So this playstyle is super fun. What this allows Outlaw Rogue to do on RNG, if you're able to get a nice setup going in the opener, maybe you're rolling the bones and you get that right combo, maybe you get the crit buff, you're able to get yourself a little bit extra burst in the opener. A lot of other classes outside of Outlaw have pretty high burst to begin with, so they're going to shoot up in damage at the start. But the longer the fight goes on, this is where Outlaw Rogue gets to shine, because Outlaw has really good sustained damage and can kind of ramp up over time when it comes to topping your DPS charts. So while some classes might shoot up into the 20k DPS, Outlaw will maybe start out at like 10 to 12k, but at the end of the fight you'll finish at about 14, where everybody else starts at 20, but then eventually is gonna go down to 14, maybe 13, maybe as low as 12, maybe as low as 10k, because they're all about the big burst in the opener, but they don't really have the endurance to keep going. With this build, you're allowing Outlaw to give yourself a little bit extra punch, a little bit extra crit in the opener if you get lucky, so you're able to shoot up in damage with everybody else. Especially amazing when it comes to AoE pulls, but you also have the stamina to keep the damage going. So normally where you might ramp yourself up to 14k by the end of the fight if it's a single target fight, you might be able to shoot up to everybody's level in burst and then maybe end up at like 16k, maybe even higher, all depending on procs, all depending on what kind of trinkets you run. Overall, this build is actually a lot of fun. It makes me think a little bit of how I want to line up my burst, line up my abilities. And the way I use Blade Flurry is also a little bit different. Now, I usually try to save Blade Flurry for when I have the pistol shot proc available. Whether it's going to crit big or not, that damage is still pretty high. So maybe in the opener, I won't just turn on Blade Flurry. Maybe in the opener, I just want to build combo points first. And if I get the proc, turn on Blade Flurry, get my Between the Eyes, get my pistol shot, and hopefully get a bunch of those procs back to back. So you can kind of mix it up a little bit with Blade Flurry. You don't just always want to keep it open and available at all times. You kind of want to save it for the biggest burst possible. And I like to dump a bunch of abilities like my Blade Rush in there as well, in order to see how many different abilities that do big bursty AoE can I put together in order to kind of burst AoE my enemies down. I feel like this build will be very popular for single target as well as AoE, especially when it comes to grinding towards higher and higher number of keys, like the 10s, the 11s, the maybe even 15s, to be able to burst through all the packs of mobs as soon as possible, which is the advantage of bringing an Outlaw Rogue to the team, and that's what Outlaw Rogues are generally good at. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know your thoughts on the Deadshot build. I have a couple of videos where I want to showcase you guys how the Deadshot build works for PvP and PvE, but if you guys have any other builds you might want me to try out, maybe an Assassination Rogue or even a Subtlety Rogue build, if I have the right pieces of gear, I would love to try it out for you guys, to show you if it's viable, to show you how you can play it optimally, whether you want to do PvP or PvE in BFA. Again, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I do hope you enjoyed. I'll see all of you guys in another video.